I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. I want to note that Director Gosa is participating by phone, and that is something that we've determined is appropriate for board members to do, especially if they are not in town. And Director Mayfield will not be able to be here this evening. We'll start with our board priorities. Director Potts, would you read those for us, please?
The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. Direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. And Director DeSalvo, would you please read our mission and vision statements?
I'd be happy to. Our mission statement: enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And our vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. Is that Director Gosa on the line?
Yeah, he got disconnected.
Okay, great, thank you. We're going to start with recognitions, and we're going to start with the Davenport Schools Foundation scholarship recipients. And Amy Wells, the executive director for the Davenport School Foundation, will be recognizing the scholarship recipients. And before she gets started, I wanted to say that many of us had an opportunity just prior to this meeting to meet with many of the students and parents, and it was so energizing. It was great, and I'm sure that you'll see a lot of this as Amy introduces some of the scholarship winners or recipients. But we have an amazing community, we have amazing kids, and we have amazing parents. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Ralph. Good evening. Push the button. There you go. Thank you. My name is Amy Wells. I'm the executive director of the Davenport Schools Foundation. Since 1987, our mission has been to provide resources to enhance the educational opportunities and experiences available to students in the Davenport schools system. This mission is best displayed through our outstanding scholarship program and our Great Minds program, which funds both mini grants for individual classrooms and district-wide programming in partnerships with the district curriculum. Through our Great Minds program, every student in grade K through 8 is given the opportunity to attend unique curriculum-driven experiential learning experiences. Tonight, however, we are celebrating the graduating class of 2019. This class has been awarded $85,400 in scholarships from the Davenport Schools Foundation. There were 47 awards given. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing several of these young men and women to you, as well as their parents who accompanied them tonight. In addition to the $85,400 we awarded this year, we are also funding an additional $17,000 in checks for winners of multi-year scholarships from the past 3 years, for a grand total of over $103,000 in scholarships for 2019. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the students from Davenport Central. As they come in, I will read off their names, and they'll stand behind the school board and we'll eventually have a picture here. From Davenport Central, we have Donna Diggs, the recipient of $1,000 of the Jerry Jurgens Athletic Academic Women's Scholarship. We have Jessica Elliott, $1,500 award for the Central High School Hall of Honor. Also, Jessica received the $5,000 Jane Grady Memorial Scholarship. We have Madison Furch, who received the Central Hall of Honor Scholarship for $1,500. Not all these students are here tonight, but maybe you can raise your hand when I call your name. Demara Field Thorpe is the recipient of $1,500 for a Central Hall of Honor Scholarship. Allison Fromm is the recipient of a $1,000 scholarship from the Davenport High School class of '59. Tessa Goodwin is the recipient of a $1,500 scholarship for the Central High School Hall of Honor. Brady Kakert received $1,000 from the Central High School class of '79. Cameron Knutson received the Central High School Women's Athletic Scholarship for $1,000. Nina Lancelotti received a $1,200 scholarship from the Helen Poling Central High School Scholarship. Brandon Leon received 2 scholarships from us. Brandon received 2 scholarships from the school foundation, the Carol Herring Memorial Scholarship for $600 and the Central High School Class of '64 Scholarship for $2,000. Stefan Martin is the recipient of 2 of our scholarships. He received the Central High School Hall of Honor Scholarship for $1,500 and the Jason Blair Roberts Scholarship for $500. The Jason Blair Roberts is our newest scholarship this year in memorial to Jason Blair Roberts. Alex McClelland received 2 scholarships, the Jerry Jurgens Athletic Men's Scholarship for $1,000 and the Michaela Rose Duvall Scholarship for $500. Corey Parker. Corey received the Hana Fujiwara Weiss Men's Scholarship for $4,000. We have William Remsa, who received $1,000 from the Jerry Jurgens Athletic Academic Men's Scholarship. Peyton Reese, $4,000 from the Hana Fujiwara Weiss Women's Scholarship. Unisha Sanders received the Davenport Schools Foundation Scholarship of $1,000. Kayla Shine received the Central High School Hall of Honor Scholarship for $1,500. Logan Van Italy received a Central High School Hall of Honor Scholarship for $1,500. Abigail White received the Joan Kilberg Lowen Scholarship for $4,000. And Aubrey Young received the Buttleman Arbisire Journalism Scholarship for $1,000. These are our Central Scholarship winners. We also awarded 2 scholarships at Mid-City High School. Neither of the students are here this evening. Their names are Antonio Surd and Paige Williams. They both were awarded a $600 scholarship apiece for the Betty Nelson Career Technical Scholarship. Next, we have North High School. And from North High School, just stay right about here. So we're going to put you all back for a picture in a minute. Perfect. From North High School, we have Esme Belzer. And Esme can wave, thank you. Esme received 2 scholarships. She received the Helen Poling Scholarship for North High School in the amount of $1,200 and the North High Music Scholarship for $500. Holden Connor received the Lisa Arbisire Scholarship for $500. Carter Joswind received the Catherine Bell Tate Scholarship. This is our largest scholarship. It is for the, it is awarded to a son or daughter of a school district employee. The scholarship is $16,000, and it's paid out at $4,000 a year. Ariana Hill received the Mary Means Memorial Scholarship for $2,000. Allison Morris received 2 scholarships. She received the Marie Link Powell Scholarship for $1,000 and the Carol Herring Memorial Scholarship for $600. And these are our North winners, recipients. Next, we have West High School coming in. From West, we have John Funte, who received 2 scholarships, the Betty Nelson Career for $600 and the George E. Weiss Career Scholarship for $500. We have Kane Greenwalt, received the Betty Nelson Career Scholarship for $600. And we have Mason Hancock. Raise your hand. Mason received the Jack Hudson Scholarship for $500. Noah Hensley. Noah received 2 scholarships. He received the Carol Herring Memorial for $600 and the Jan Mutum Educator Opportunity Scholarship for $10,000. Haley Jones. Haley received the Jan Mutum Educator Opportunity Scholarship for $1,500. Brady McIntyre. Brady received 2 scholarships, the Brian Kepi Memorial for $500 and the Helen Poling at West High School for $1,200. Presley Roseman received the Jan Mutum Educator Scholarship for $1,500. McKenna Terry DeVore, I think they must have gotten out of here, received the Carol Herring Memorial Scholarship for $600. William Zog received 2 scholarships, the Friends of West and the Friends of West for $1,500 and West High Music for $1,000. I'm sorry. McKenna? Caitlin. Last name? Caitlin Bauer, West High School. Caitlin Bauer, help me out. Jack King Scholarship, thank you, which is a band scholarship for $500. $1,500, thank you. My papers are kind of a... Davenport School Board, I present to you the Class of 2019 Scholarship Award winners from the Foundation. Any comments, or we'll line up the students for pictures here?
Yeah, well, why don't we take a few minutes if there are any comments from the board? Director DeSalvo.
Wow, what a group. So impressed with all of the scholarships tonight, with all those that are here and those that couldn't be here. You are truly amazing, and you are heading to the next chapter in your life, and we're so proud of all you've accomplished so far. I want y'all to come back a year from now because I want to hear what you're doing. But congratulations to you and your parents or family, guardians, whoever's here. You've done a wonderful job with these kids. So congratulations. We're incredibly proud of you.
Director Beck.
I know I didn't get to introduce myself personally to all of you, but those of you who I did get to talk to, so impressive. Really proud of you. Basically, can't say anything different than Director DeSalvo, but it's just thrilling to know what great things are happening in the district. And these are one of the things that we really should celebrate. So great work. And thank you to your families as well for making it possible.
Director Hayes. Oh, Director Hayes.
This has to be by far my favorite time of the year. I'm sure you school board members, student school board members know some of the trials that we deal with as being school board members, but just to see all of you awarded monies for your hard work, it's just so gratifying just to see how well that you've done and just watch the smiles on your face. And I know I feel like somebody's mom, just really excited for each of you, so congratulations to each of you.
Director Potts.
Yeah, some of you guys I've known since you were in sixth grade. Okay? Some of you I've known your uncle a long time. And I was listening, and the people that are mentioned, so many of the people whose scholarships these are in name of, Mary Means, Jack Hudson, Jack King, Bartleman, Jane Grady, are all district employees. They're all people that worked with kids their whole lives. And they left a legacy to continue that work. And they gave you that legacy for you to continue that work. No matter what your career you choose, no matter what job you take, no matter what course you decide or your path in college, when you're done, you're there to serve people, to help people, to make everybody's life a little better. One day at a time, one act at a time. And I'm encouraged by all of you. You're just a swell bunch of kids, you know? I mean, I don't worry about my Social Security anymore. I just don't.
Director Gosa, do you have anything?
I'll just echo what everybody else says. This is a huge thing, and congratulations to you all.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Amy, for presiding over this and doing some of the tough work that you mentioned earlier. You know, trying to make these decisions, I can imagine, is very difficult. But I think on behalf of the whole board, we want to thank all parents in our community, all of our community members, all of our students for everything you're doing out there. And this is a special evening, and it's great to recognize these recipients. So not much more we can say except thank you very much, and thank you, and good luck to all of you up here. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't get one.
Corey's directing traffic there. Thank you, Corey.
It's that Parker thing going on.
The world's gonna be okay. Go, ready? 1, 2. Okay, thank you. Everybody just look at the clock.
Thank you guys very much.
Yep. Thanks.
I used to play basketball.
What's that? Quite a few will. We're going to recognize our student school board members this evening also. And I'm going to go up here to the microphone to make those presentations. Can you hear me okay back there? All right. The student school board members participate with the school board every year, and they offer guidance and thinking from a student's perspective, and it's a really refreshing addition to our board meetings, I must say. Tonight, we've only got 2 of the student board members here, and I'm going to name them last. I want to recognize all of the board members that were here. From Central, we had Brady Kakert and Natalie, which I'll introduce in a little bit. From West, we had Carson Cayley and Alyssa Rodriguez. From North, we had Esme, who's here, and I'll introduce in a minute, and Christian Wagshaw. And from Mid-City, we had Nate Bloomberg. You know, most of these students have a lot on their plates. There are a lot of activities. There are all of the academic things and probably a ton of extracurricular things that all of these student board members have to do. And on top of that, they've got other outside activities besides school, I'm sure. And so it's always a pleasure for us when board members can participate. So I'm going to make 2 presentations. First, I'd like to have Esme come up. That's just another certificate, and it says, in recognition for serving as a student board member for the Davenport School Board during the 2018-19 school year, presented to Esme Belzer, North High School. Thank you very much, Esme. And the other one is a certificate of recognition, and I'll have Natalie come up in a minute. I have to say that I've known Natalie for a long, long time, and I've known her parents for a long, long time. And Natalie seems to take all of this very seriously. She's been able to make most of our boring meetings, and probably you've probably stuck it out most of the time. And I know some of them have been pretty bad. But why don't you come on up? I want to say thank you very much, Natalie, for all of your great service. And so in recognition for serving as a student board member for the Davenport School Board during the 2018-19 school year, presented to Natalie Thiede. Thank you very much, Natalie. Good luck. I don't know how long this meeting is going to go, but this is actually your last meeting tonight. And so I want to make sure that you felt comfortable. If you needed to leave early, go ahead, all right? But thank you for your service. I guess the next one, I don't have a person. Oh, Dawn? Okay, go ahead.
First of all, First of all, thank you to our board of directors, our administrators, our student school board members, members of the media, and members of our community. Tonight, we'd like to take a few minutes to recognize our current school board members for the many hours of work that they put in on behalf of our district. These are unpaid volunteer positions, and we know how many hours, how many countless hours you spend learning about all of the things that you need to learn in order to come and be a part of these meetings and offer good decisions on behalf of the district. There is a framed certificate of appreciation at each of your places, signed on behalf of the Davenport Community Schools and the Iowa Association of School Boards. Members of the district's local school improvement advisory committee have drafted a letter to the editor, which will be submitted to the Quad City Times for publication. One of our LCAC members, Malavika Shirkande, has come to read this letter of appreciation aloud to you and to those in attendance this evening. On behalf of the district and of our LCAC members who could not be here this evening, thank you for all that you do. Malavika. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Respected directors of the board, school board, Mr. Schneiden, Mr. Scott, administrative staff, and my fellow citizens. Thank you for giving me this opportunity on behalf of the members of the LCAC committee. And I'm going to read out our prepared remarks, so please bear with me as I read. As citizens of Davenport, we elect school board members to provide direction and governance to our local school district. These individuals come into office with a passion for education, students, and our community, and a desire to guide our schools in providing a world-class education to prepare students for a bright and a successful future. Yours is a demanding job, with many hours devoted to researching issues, attending school events, participating in multiple meetings each month, and fielding phone calls from constituents. In honor of the School Board Appreciation Month, the members of the local School Improvement Advisory Committee would like to thank the Davenport School Board members for their commitment to our students, recognize the many hours they devote to preparing for and performing their duties, and commend them for the leadership they provide to our district. Thank you very much for your service. On behalf of all the members of the Davenport School Local Improvement Advisory Committee, I sincerely would really appreciate and thank for all that you do. So thanks once again. And I have to say, pardon my faux pas, I meant to address you as well, Mr. Schnecklat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malavika, and thank you to the LZAC and Don. That's very, very nice. Thank you very much. Are there any student board reports?
Central and North Industrial Tech students went on a field trip to 2 construction sites where they got to see and learn the process of construction and building. 3 Central students were part of the Men Empowerment Leader Panel at Williams Intermediate School, and they spoke to 48th grader boys about the importance of high school, building positive relationships, and getting involved in positive activities. The Friendship Sloop won Most Innovative Design at the Cardboard Boat Regatta, and the team of 4 Central students worked hard all week to produce the only boat that did not use oars to successfully navigate the waters. Mike Miniter had a terrific season and was the district champion for tennis and went to state this last weekend. The girls soccer team won their first sub-state game last Thursday against Cedar Rapids, Washington, and they will play Pleasant Valley for their second game this Wednesday. And 6 female swimmers, Jessica Elliott, Allison Fellner, Megan Fellner, Maddie Furch, Ellie Murphy, and myself were named All-American Academic Swimmers. And finally, the class of 2019 will be graduating this Sunday at the Tech Slayer Center at 11.
North students attended the Scholarship Awards banquet where they were recognized for being awarded over $1 million in scholarships for the class of 2019. The North Drama Club competed in the Iowa High School Musical Theater Awards this year, where they received special recognitions in their spring musical of Mary Poppins. And even though the weather doesn't seem to be cooperating, North baseball and softball seasons are kicking off, and we're hopeful for a great season. And again, we're also graduating at 1:30 at the Tech Slayer. So.
Is that it? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to board reports. Are there any? Director Beck.
I attended the Fillmore Elementary first grade reading celebration last Friday. And I also took a tour. I met with the principal, Ms. Ballman, and looked around the school and sort of talked about what they're doing there. And that was my first opportunity to really see what the role of a SAM is, because I haven't experienced that firsthand. So that was super helpful for me to really understand how that SAM-principal relationship works. And then, of course, the reading celebration was fantastic. The first graders in Miss Albie's class were the ones that I got to see, and they were amazing. They were all reading really well. And then one little boy did not have an adult that day because he said he forgot to invite his adult. And so I was his adult. We had ice cream treats, and he read to me about animals, and it was wonderful. His name was Jarrell, and he was just the cutest thing ever. And so I asked if I could come back and listen to him read to me again, and he said yes. So, and Miss Albie said it would be okay as well. So hopefully I'll get to go back another time and hear him read. But that was just a fantastic celebration of reading. It was really great, and all the families were there, and just a big party in the library for all the first graders.
Thank you. Director Hayes.
I had a couple exciting programs that I attended. I attended the STARS Mentoring Recognition Program, which was very nice, the end of the year celebration, and I'd like to give kudos to Deb Stevenson for all of her work that she did, and also to Eisenhower's for their wonderful program they had. Everyone that participated, it basically was a great program. Also Saturday, I went to the Delta Sigma Theta Red Shoe Luncheon. I thought I was going to do a scholarship presentation, but when I got there, I was just totally blown away by all the negative publicity that you hear within the district. But at that scholarship program, every girl that was awarded scholarships was from the Davenport district. There was a lady that was recognized, Yolanda Graves. She has a catering business. She's a product of the district. Essence Wilmington. She's a 17-year-old choreographer. She had a team of 30 girls, and her motto was, or girls and 2 guys, I guess. Her motto is, you don't just dance, you perform. She had mentioned at one point she was a Bulls baby, where at halftime, when she was 12 years old, she performed for the Chicago Bulls during halftime. Then there was a Brittany Wilmington that received recognition. She was a double major from Iowa State she was a STEM graduate. She was in science, and she also had a math degree, and she was talking about her things was Girls Do Science. So she has a little program that she's trying to encourage more girls to go into engineering fields, which I thought was phenomenal. A couple of the girls were more from North as well, and they talked about their 8-semester scholarships that they received. And it was just a really enlightening situation to go and see those girls perform and hear their stories. And I was just overwhelmed with all of this talent that was in the Davenport Community School District that's never discussed.
Okay, thank you very much. Director DeSalvo.
Last week, I can't remember what day it was, maybe Thursday. I attended the student-built home that our students built in Northwest Davenport, and it was amazing. I took my husband with me, and I told him I wanted to buy it. I can't talk him into that just yet, but I'm going to keep working on it. It was spectacular. I'm just in awe of what these kids can do, what we saw here tonight and what they're doing out in our community, and this home is amazing. So it's on the market. Take a look because it is truly beautiful. I have a question for Esme. Who is Mary Poppins in the North High musical that got all those awards?
Well, it just so happened to be me. Just to mention that part. So me and JJ, who played Bert, received special recognition from the state for our performances.
Very nice. So more talent. It's just amazing to me. I would also like to give an update on Dr. Kowalski, and he continues to take his classes. He will finish his classes at the end of June. He will then have his superintendent's license in 3 states at that time. He will have Wisconsin, Illinois, and then Iowa. He will take that certification to the Board of Educational Examiners as soon as he has it in his hands. And pending their approval, then he will be on board with the Davenport Community School District. So just to clarify that, I'll keep you updated as we learn more, but he's trucking along and will be here very soon.
Thank you for that. Are there any other board reports? Director Gosa, anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. And just so everybody out there is aware, Director Gosa normally has his phone on mute, and that's why there's a slight delay. Next is our upcoming events. Director Beck, would you read those for us, please?
Sure. May 29th, tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the Central High School Performing Arts Center, we're going to celebrate Mid-City's graduation. On June 2nd, Sunday, graduation for the seniors at the other 3 high schools at the Tax Slayer Center at 11 a.m. Central, at 1:30 p.m. North, and at 4 p.m. West. On June 3rd, Monday, there's a committee of the whole meeting here in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom, 1702 Main Street, Davenport, at 5:30 p.m. On Wednesday, June 5th, the Policy Committee meets in the Executive Boardroom here at the ASC. On June 10th, we have our regular meeting. That's on a Monday at 6 p.m. here in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. June 21st is the first Friday that we will be closed, or the district will be, ASC will be closed for summer hours, and they will be closed every Friday through August 9th. On June 24th, Monday, the second regular meeting for June at 6 p.m. here in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom, 1702 Main Street, Davenport.
Thank you very much. Next is open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We have 3 open forum requests, and for the first 2, I'm going to allow 2 minutes, and that is for Marlise Bozeman. And after Marlise is Mike Miller. And then last will be Lori Yankee. And Lori had, prior to the meeting, requested a couple of minutes additional time, which I granted. And so she'll have 4 minutes. Marlise.
All right, so do I push button? Okay, so my name is Marlisa Bozeman. I live in 614 West 44th Street in Davenport, and I am the mother of Esme Belzer and Alex Belzer, my son over there. Both of my children have spent their education at Davenport schools for the past 15 years. They started out in Harrison, then went through Wood, and went through North. And at a time of challenge for the district where there's so much negative publicity and difficult decisions to be made, I just wanted to show my appreciation and tell you how thankful I am for everything that the Davenport School District has done for my children. And when I think about the Davenport School District, I think the most pivotal resources that you have is the people that you employ. When I think of the years that my children have spent in the Davenport School District, tons of names come to mind of people that have really steered my kids into the direction of the people that they are today. Think all the way back to kindergarten, Mrs. Davis and Miss McAleer at Harrison, Mrs. Holbrook, the librarian, the Reverts family, they're super dedicated. At Wood, we've had Mr. Tadlock, Miss Sawyer, their administration, Mr. Caprula at the time, Miss Schultz were absolutely amazing. At North, Miss Buckley, Miss Schmidt, Mr. Van Holly, Mrs. LaCourte, these are all people that have truly helped my children become the children, or the grown-ups, I guess, that they are today. And I'm truly thankful for them. But aside from preparing my kids in their education, I think it's important to highlight the opportunities they've had in, well, I call them soft skills. My son calls them, what did he call them? The hidden curriculum, or 21st century skills. They've had a tremendous amount of opportunities to grow outside of the classroom in extracurriculars, seeing leadership right here in action. It's not always pretty in real life, but it's important and difficult at times. Their extracurriculars, their opportunities to be leaders in their schools, to perform in front of an audience in fine arts, and those are aspects that they will carry with them, and I know that all of those components are going to help them be successful as they get into the real world. So thank you to the Davenport Community School District for doing your part in helping my children be the humans that they are today.
Thank you, Marlise. Next is Mike Miller.
So most of you know me through my work with Riverbend Food Bank, but I'm also the parent of a Davenport Central senior. When we moved here for me to take the job with the food bank 4 years ago, when all we had was the internet, everything in the internet pushes you to Pleasant Valley. They say that PV is a 10, Bettendorf is a 7, and every other school is a 3. And so we looked for a month trying to find the right house in the PV district, and we couldn't find it for a variety of reasons. It's important to me to be near the people that the food bank serves, kind of the housing we happen to like, but also because of our son's experience. He's been to school in an affluent suburb of Indianapolis and into a very diverse school system in Shaker Heights, Ohio. And we ended up giving him the choice. And he said if he would have the choice, he'd rather have the full experience of a diverse school district. And we're so proud of him for that decision. We're so happy we did so. Theo's experience has been positive in every way. Academically, he was able to get everything he needed. His interest is engineering, that he's going to be pursuing at Iowa State, and he could take the top-level math classes and science classes that he needed, but also a well-rounded curriculum to get other experiences. Extracurricularly, he immersed himself in the band program, freshman band, concert band, wind ensemble, marching band, jazz band. That was just his thing. And through those experiences, he has not only an avocation, but memories that will last him a lifetime, but also socially. My son made friends from all walks of life. He experienced real life in Davenport schools, which I think is really great because when he gets out of here, he's going to have to live in real life. And I think this has been a really great preparation for him. So, earlier this year, I had a chance to participate in the interviews for the new superintendent. and Bill Sheeden shared during that time about this open forum and that how it was usually negative and an opportunity for complaints. I knew at the time that I needed to get here before my son graduated, which is going to happen this Sunday. And you have a tough job in a tough context with a tough fiscal situation and the state funding formula. And I just want to thank each of you and to each of his teachers and to each of his administrators. We are so thankful that we did not listen to the internet and so thankful for the experience that we've had in Davenport schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Next is Lori.
Don't worry, I won't take 4 minutes. I just asked for a little bit extra time in case I went over. My name's Lori Yonke. I live at 2315 Hillendale Road here in Davenport. 4 children through the district. 1 graduated 2 years ago. You guys are in for so much fun, so congrats. 3 remain, West, Williams, and Walcott. Matter of fact, I just left Walcott from their open house to beat it here. And as soon as I'm done talking, I'll be over at West for their choir banquet. So super exciting times. So I am here tonight after being called by Susan Downs at the back here to advocate for a contract that's coming before you tonight. It's the IMSE professional development contract for Orton Gilliam for the teachers. So tonight you have seen a lot of Davenport success stories. This is one that will lead to more Davenport success stories. And just to kind of give you my background with it, as you know, I do have a child with special ed in the special ed program. Talked about it many times, but what you don't know as a parent of a special ed or a disabled child is that no matter what your career background is or what your degree is in, what you really become is a researcher. You are constantly researching the best method, the best therapy, the best opportunities for your child to bring them to bridge that gap between the gen ed world and the special ed world. So my child, in particular, has a language disability. Orton Gilliam is what everyone has recommended, her doctors. It is top-notch, and no matter what is decided tonight as far as this contract goes, my daughter will receive that. It's written in her IEP, so I am here specifically to advocate for the other children. This is a great opportunity for Davenport schools, foundation and literacy. Between that and the 95% group contract before you, this is a rock solid foundation of literacy. And I don't have to explain to you what literacy means, the impact within the community, schools, behavior, self-esteem. This is huge for students across the board. Gen ed, special ed, everyone between these 2 contracts here. This is vital and important. This is a great opportunity. As we have seen, matter of fact, the last board meeting I attended, Director Hayes and Director Beck both talked wistfully almost of let's get back to a time where Davenport schools is the place where students want to be, where parents want to send their kids. Believe me when I say this will help bring this back. So I will not get into Orton Gilliam or how this will work. Susan will be fantastic on presenting all of that information, but I will share a few things that I don't know Susan will touch upon. Right now with this contract for IMSE, while it is a bit expensive, 60 teachers to start off with, it also is something that on the Iowa side for school districts, no one really else is doing. We heard the mention of PV. PV kinda does it, but it's really centered more in their special ed program. They're not doing it in the gen ed side of the house. I know this because I verified this with the AEA, and also the AEA, they can't support us in this. So that money spent to train the teachers is also ongoing training and support from the company. So this is huge. This is a great opportunity to really put Davenport schools on the map with a program that no one else is really offering. And as a parent, as a child with a language disability, this is something I looked for. I looked for in other school districts to move. This is a great chance for Davenport schools to kind of redeem themselves and build that rock solid foundation to be what we could be. So thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lori. And thank you to everybody, Marlise, Mike, and Lori, for presenting your perspectives. It really is important. So with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move we accept the consent agenda as written.
Excuse me for a minute, there's a lot on here. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck. If you're going to discuss something, you should pull it out of the consent agenda. Is that what you'd like to do?
Sure.
Or I don't know where you're going, but
I was just going to ask for some clarification, but I can pull it out. I was going to ask for a little bit of description about what the 95% group does in the contract.
yeah, I think it might get
I can
into
pull it out.
discussion.
Okay.
So why don't you just request, that we.
May I request that we pull out the 95% group contract, please?
Okay, great. Then 6.02, the 95% group will be voted on after the consent agenda. Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? All right, then we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding 6.02, the contract 95% group?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move that the board adopt the contract with the 95% group.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
So discussion. Director Beck.
Yes, I did have a question about sort of exactly what the 95% group does and how this will be helping us in our plans in the future. And then Ms. Yankee mentioned it, so I thought it'd be appropriate if we could get a little bit of an explanation of what it does, since it seems like it might be a new contract, so.
Excuse me. Actually, the 95% contract's been around for several years.
Okay.
It really involves, it's used as an intervention for students in the primary grades, phonemic awareness primarily, getting kids caught up on skills. Primarily, we use it as a tier 2 intervention. And TJ, you can jump in there if you can think of something else. It's primarily a tier 2 intervention, meaning kids that are struggling with the standards or the foundational skills of reading, then they have an opportunity to get additional instruction. There's class-wide interventions that go on also with the 95%. And then there's a consultant that comes out and actually works with the teachers all throughout the district. She rotates around and watches them teach and then gives them feedback on what they're doing. It's why our accuracy scores are as high as they are. That's the piece that we're growing on. So now we got to work on the other part.
Okay. And that sort of follow up to that, it is, so this person, the training's ongoing basically, and it's for gen ed and special ed teachers, or is it just reading specialists?
Primarily just reading in gen ed. However, there are special ed kids that receive the service also, in the class wides.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes, motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the recommendation from administration for adoption of the bills from the bill listing periods of May 9th, 2019 through May 22nd, 2019. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of May 9th, 2019 through May 22nd, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
I do have a quick one that I reported to the board today, but I wanted to reiterate. Of our RIFT teachers, I wanted to give you an update. We have what our process is that when we have an opening, we go through our internal process. If a teacher wants that position, they apply for it, and then from there, when it gets to an opening, we call a teacher back off of the RIF list. So I wanted to give you an update of where we are right now. There are 22 people that have accepted positions and have come off the RIF list. 18 people have declined. And what declined means is they've taken a job somewhere else or decided to go on a different path. And we have 31 staff members currently on the RIF list. We are working through jobs right now, and we're getting to a spot where we are filling really hard to fill positions like health and different positions like that. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on that.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to items requiring action. May I have motion regarding an RFP for food and non-food?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move that the board approve the responsible and responsive bid from Reinhardt Food Service for $2,021,539.42 for food and non-food expendable supplies, storage, technological support, and distribution services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
First of all, I want to say I appreciate the breakdown of the scoring system. That was helpful. But I did have a question. I noticed that this bid was not the lowest bid, but they were the highest scoring. And I guess I kind of wonder, I mean, the numbers weren't that far off, so it probably wasn't that big of a deal, but I'm just curious as to how the decision is made when the one that scores the highest is not necessarily the lowest.
Hello, my name is. Can you hear me? Hello, I'm Connie Dobbles, and what we do is we develop a rubric or a matrix, and we evaluate all of the criteria that's listed here, and each member of that audit team goes through the proposals that are given to us, and each one of us decides whether the customer service deserves 10 points. We called references for the other companies that we weren't familiar with.
Okay.
We asked them some standard questions based on the results of those questions that we asked. Then we awarded points based on that. For the most part, like the prices, the fixed fees, and delivery schedules, all of them received basically the same points, but it was broken out. So those were all weighted based on the responses from the bids.
Okay, thank you. Oh, actually, one other follow-up question.
Yeah, you may want to wait up here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Director Beck.
And I apologize if this is stuff that everybody's been through before, but this is the first time I've encountered it. So, are we using the recommended company Reinhardt currently?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And was this sort of like the every 3 years you go out
Exactly.
for bid?
So the bid is awarded for 1 year with the opportunity to renew it for an additional 2 years. So each year we would go back out and ask for just a letter of renewal, but this is the year that we are going to, it's the full bid.
Okay, thank you.
Director Hayes.
Were we given any clear explanation as to why Martin Brothers declined to give a bid?
Martin Brothers actually came to the bid opening and they said that at this point in time, they were just interested in getting more information. In a pre-bid meeting, they said that they did not have storage capabilities for all of our commodity items. So they also mentioned that if we decide to ever bring that warehousing into Davenport schools, then they would also be interested in participating in the bid process.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Director Gosa, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
I've got a couple of questions. I don't recall ever seeing a contract like this with the matrix that you have and with the bids the way that they are. So, and I'm really rather jazzed by it though.
Okay.
I like the process. What I was wondering though is that how much, so if you give somebody more points, like Reinhardt, are points somehow equivalent to dollars, or there must be a point at which you wouldn't have selected Reinhardt even though they had the highest points if it was just out of range, or somehow you made that decision.
Well, for the bottom line cost, we awarded that the most points, or 40 points. So for the lowest bidder, which in this case was actually Cole Wholesale, they were awarded the complete 40 points. And then we used math to figure out, based on the percentage of each other vendor in a descending order, how many points they would each get. So because we're talking about a $2 million contract, the $40,000 difference between Cole and Reinhardt only equated to a 1 point difference on that scale. So then we take into account all the other factors. For example, the fixed fees, or I'm sorry, firm pricing. So for firm pricing, for every category in our contract, so we have fresh fruits and vegetables, we have canned items, we have meat, protein, frozen items, and paper goods. If they gave us firm pricing in all 5 categories for the entire 10 month of the school year, then they would be awarded the 10 points. Not every company would give us firm pricing for the entire year. So based on the number of months, they would get either the full 10 points, or they would go to 9 points if they only, or 6 points if they only offered it half the year. So each item had a little matrix that we would follow to help guide us. Overall, we, I think the biggest thing was when it came down to the handling fee by category, Reinhardt had the lowest dollar amount for that, so they got the highest points, and that's where there was some discrepancy, because they were going to give us all of our commodity items at $2. The other companies were going to charge us higher for those commodity items.
All right, thank you very much. Any other discussion? All right.
One other question.
Director Beck, did you have something?
Yes, and this kind of applies to I think, multiple of these contracts. I know you contact some vendors and you also put it on the website. When you're choosing vendors, is it to contact? Is it just companies that are known to do school district type stuff, or have you thought about, do you sometimes call people who maybe have never done this before but would be?
For example, Cisco did submit a bid for us, and they are not typically a school food service vendor. So their reference page only had 2 school districts, only 1 in Iowa. But we do, if anyone shows interest, we keep a list and a folder for each bid on who would be potential to contact for when we're open for bid. So we have people contacting us throughout the year saying, the next time you go out for bid, let me know. And then we just keep a file of that in the office.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of an RFP for fresh fruit and vegetables?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the RFP for Alfredo's Fresh Produce Company for the fresh fruit and vegetable proposal as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
I'm sorry. So when I saw this, and you emailed it to 6 vendors, you placed it on the district website, only 1 person submitted a proposal. What about companies like Hy-Vee, right? That's a region, because it says fresh fruits and vegetables. And I noticed that not everybody has the capability to package them appropriately, and that's why they didn't bid or didn't submit a proposal. But that's a large company that deals in a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. They're regional, somewhat local. Do grocery store chains get contacted for this fresh produce, or is that something that we could potentially think about, or is that just something that's not feasible?
I was going to say that is something that we've never considered, and in the future I could reach out to them. However, comparing our costs to Hy-Vee's, the prices are typically astronomical, and we wouldn't be able to afford it just because they wouldn't be able to produce the mass quantities that we need in the time that we need them. And these particular items are like a 1/3 cup. So it's not even a normal half-cup serving.
Okay.
So there are
It's a very
specific
specialized.
machines
Okay.
that actually do all the processing at Lafredo. I've been to the plant. It's
Oh, okay.
quite amazing, the volume that they do. And we can reach out. I never even considered Hy-Vee, but
I just thought of it because it was fresh fruits and vegetables, and you mentioned the packaging, and I was like, well, but now that you've explained I didn't realize how specialized it is, so that answered my question, so now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Director Gosa, do you have anything?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My question is, are we able to utilize some of the stuff that they grow at Mid-City to incorporate in some of this stuff? So, I mean, that way they're learning about it while, I guess, helping the district out in a way as well.
they don't produce the volume that we would need to meet our school program. This is a grant program that we serve thousands of students throughout the year with different types of fruits and vegetables. I'm not sure that the program there is sustainable enough to be able to do that at this point in time. I believe that the produce is available for students to consume, but we have not incorporated it in our food service practices.
Oh, okay, I guess I misspoke. I was just saying if that would be able to offset some of, so we're not using as much from Lafredo or whoever it is, that it's not costing us as much. I wasn't saying that they could do the whole thing, obviously. I mean, that would just be a lot. We'd have to have a vegetable garden in every one of our buildings or something to be able to maybe do that. But I just thought maybe it could reduce some of the costs that we have to kind of save a little money. But thank you.
Director Gosa, it sounds like you must be in kind of a noisy spot. Some of the noise comes through. If there's a way you can avoid the noise when you're meeting with us, it'd be great. Any other discussion? Director DeSalvo.
I would just comment on Director Gosa for Connie. I believe that the food that they grow at Mid-City, they do send home with their students. So it's a great program that they do. I think they feed the students there, and then they allow the kids to take it home, which I think is fantastic. So just to comment on Director Gosa's.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of an RFP for beverages?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I recommend the board approve the lowest responsive bid from Atlantic Bottling Coca-Cola for $49,041.75.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Gosa?
Nope.
Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. I apologize. I haven't been looking up Natalie and Esme. Have you had anything that you've wanted to say here? 'Cause this is like getting to be your last chance, you know? So get my attention if there's something that you want to talk about. Okay, may I have a motion? Did I say that motion passes? That motion regarding the RFP for beverages did pass. Okay, thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of meal prices?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I recommend the board approve the school breakfast and lunch prices for 2019-20 as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Connie, can you tell us, and maybe I missed it in reading because I read this pretty late last night, how much of this is covered under federal grants?
Currently, the federal reimbursement rate for breakfast is $1.79, and the federal reimbursement rate for lunch is $3.
Okay, thank you.
One other question.
Director Beck.
Can you tell me why there are USDA guidelines on like how much you have to charge? Like if it costs less, can't you just charge less?
Right. So the reason why the federal government developed guidelines for what we charge for meals is because some school districts were taking the federal reimbursement for free meals and subsidizing the kids that were paying for meals. So they have required for us to charge amount that is similar to what that federal reimbursement rate is. So ideally, each year we should be increasing our price to meet that federal reimbursement rate.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I was trying to think about the price compared to the revenue compared to your cost. So we've just approved a bunch of costs, and here we're approving prices but not revenue. Do you project revenue, and how does revenue compare to cost for all of that we just did?
I was going to say Claudia would probably be able to better explain that. I have been working with Claudia, and it's our goal to drill down more on food nutrition costs versus revenues.
Okay. Claudia, do you have and I don't need it to the penny. I can live with assumptions and guesstimates and stuff.
Food service is reported and recorded in its own fund. Per the state, it's required to be recorded as a proprietary fund, meaning it has to be self-supporting. So we do in a financial statement, we do a revenue and expense statement every month that Connie gets, and we review that, and we, like Connie said, we're going to be digging into that a little deeper as we go into next year. Right now, there is a positive fund balance this year in the proprietary fund for food service. It has been decreasing throughout this year, so that's one indication that we need to look at increasing the meal prices that we charge. We also have to take into consideration the federal and state subsidies that we get, along with the number of buildings that we have classified as community eligibility provision, CEP buildings, where all students receive their lunch for free and no student is charged. And that affects the reimbursement and the subsidies that we get. So it's all part of the formula that we look at to determine. We need to make sure that we are sustaining a positive fund balance in the food service fund.
So I was thinking about some years back, somebody did a survey and said about 40% of the food. Well, I can't recall if it was 40% of the food that kids purchase, or if it was 40% of the fruits and vegetables that they're supposed to pick up, that they throw in the trash. Do you remember any of that? Does anybody? Anyway, you know that it's significant.
Right.
Even
So the Healthy Kids Act requires students to take at least 1/2 cup of a fruit or a vegetable. And that is, again, a whole nother federal guideline about trying to make Americans healthier, as well as following the dietary recommendations for all Americans. So there's a couple different sources of information that comes into those federal guidelines. We try to offer a variety with every meal so that kids will have a choice between 2 different fruits and 2 different vegetables. We are now just doing, with the help of AmeriCorps, doing studies to see what the waste amount is in the schools, and just their presence alone, monitoring the waste in those schools, have decreased the amount of food that's being thrown away.
So I think what you said is the federal government requires us to give kids some of this food even if they aren't going to eat it, right?
That is
and
correct.
then they have the right to just throw it away.
Mhm.
And
However, Thanks to you, we have developed the share tables throughout every school in the school districts. So every school has a share table. So if the student takes an item that they don't want, they would put it on a share table for other students to take.
Well, that's pretty cool. Is that working out?
Yeah, it's working very well.
I'll just throw my next idea on the table. So I was
Well,
thinking.
that was your idea. So
I understand.
You asked and I did it.
And that's a good one. And I probably, in fact, I won't even present my next idea because that one is so good.
Yeah.
So,
Send it to me in an email.
all right. Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Director DeSalvo.
I have one other question. It's related to the summer meals that we offer. Is that included in all of this as well?
No.
Or that's a different fund and different grant?
Yeah, it's its own entity, and all of those meals are 100% reimbursable, and they actually have different federal guidelines for that program as well.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a motion regarding approval of contract with IMSE?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board accept administration's recommendation to approve the contract with Institute for Multi-Sensory Education, IMSE, for professional development for $52,240.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
So I read through this, well, I skimmed it. It's a lot of words. But I was impressed. This seems like a pretty reasonable price for professional development for that many people. Thank you, Natalie. And
Excuse me a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Natalie, bye. Thanks for being here the whole year. Sorry to interrupt you, Director.
Just trying to sneak
It's
out.
totally was she supposed to take the holder?
She can.
Oh, okay.
As me, you can take yours.
The silver part.
The whole
Yeah, the whole
thing.
thing.
Focus, people.
Sorry. Hey, I want to make sure they get their deserved payment for what they've been doing. So it's 30 special education teachers, one from each building. And then was this to include some general education teachers, or is that a future?
No, so the proposal for the 52,000 is based on, actually, I think we can go up to 64 people to be trained. It will go down in price if we don't have that many. We're just being optimistic. But we originally were going to do just one special ed teacher from each building. But as we presented to some principals, because they're aware of this instructional method as well, asked if they use their own teacher quality money, could they also pay to send some gen ed teachers? Well, then we've had an overwhelming request for that. So we are, it'll be 30 special ed and then up to 30 gen ed.
Okay, I guess I would say I think it's just as important to have a lot of gen ed teachers take
Yes.
this as well, especially as we have plenty of students who are in special education or getting special education services, but are also in general education
Yes.
classrooms. And so I think that's a really important part of offering that full continuum of services to all of our students. And my other question was, will then we renew this each year? So is this a yearly contract then?
This is actually for the training. They'll get all of the instructional materials. They have a year of online, each person going through the training will have a year free of online access to their lesson planning system, which actually helps individuals using this approach to customize for their students or their student needs. And then a bonus is with this company, they will support each individual that's trained until they're done teaching, whether they teach for our district or not. So it's basically lifelong support. Will we do more training? Yes. We anticipate we will have to. This is sort of our initial. There is also, this is the comprehensive training for students who are reading at the 4th grade and above level or functioning there. There's actually another training called the intermediate training, which we may provide for some of our secondary teachers, but we have to get this comprehensive training in first because it's all of the instructional methods.
Okay. And so is there, the people who get this initial training will be able to basically keep up
Absolutely.
continuing ed throughout
Yes.
the lifetime of
And they actually get free refresher support or courses, and that's online with the company.
And I guess, will they be required to do refreshers every once in a while? Is that something we could
Yes.
discuss?
Yes.
Because I feel like, it's one of those things that might be easy to let go.
You bet.
And I don't want to let that go.
You bet. And we can drift, and that's obviously, we've done that for other things over the last few years. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. The other nice piece about this is pretty intensive training, but the staff who are trained, the special ed and gen ed teachers, so that they can collaborate, they can also support other teachers in implementing the strategies. The other teachers won't be trained in the strategies. These guys will have the Orton Gillingham certificate, but they'll be able to say as they're collaborating maybe at the 3rd grade team level or wherever, and they say, oh, you know what, I have this group of students who are struggling. Let's help you with this approach, because Orton Gillingham can be used with any curriculum. It's an approach that can be adapted to any curriculum.
Okay.
So it allows us to have a team in each building that can support other teachers in meeting the needs of kids.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Director DeSalvo?
I was looking at some of our Phase 2 requirements, and one of them is individual career development plans, and I don't know if any of this would
be
applicable to some of that. I'm not trying to kill two birds with one stone either.
Yep.
I think it's just important that this could be someone's passion. This could be what they're very interested in, and part of that development plan, and perhaps it would help them succeed in that area too. So I think it's great. Thank you for bringing it.
Anything else? Director Gosa?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I was looking at this. You requested this, and I thought, oh man.
Not sure how to take that.
Well, I was thinking that I think that you've been so busy, and I thought, are you going to be administering this, controlling it? I don't know. It's got to take some oversight, and will that be your responsibility?
It'll be one of the specialists in our special ed department. Krista Brombot is taking the lead on this project.
Okay. And then kind of following up on Director DeSalvo's question, I wondered, not about Phase 2, but I wondered about Phase 1. Does this have any impact on Phase 1?
So as we better our instruction for students, I would hope it would reduce the achievement gap for our students of color and our other students. But in addition, in Phase 2, it talks about having to deal with early literacy. That was one of the areas. This definitely will have an impact on that.
Okay. Have we ever done something like this before?
Yeah, I actually was Orton Gillingham trained when I was a school psychologist in this district about 15 years ago. And we had a number of teachers that were trained in Orton Gillingham, special ed teachers. And then we just, it was one of those things that we just stopped doing, I guess. And in fact, some of the teachers who were trained back then are like chomping at the bit. And it's like, no, you get one for billing this time. But even because they saw it so effective when they implemented it in the past.
And that we need to make sure we just,
That's why we do the refresher. Yeah, we want to keep with it this time. Yeah.
How long have you been working on getting this to present to us?
Just the last, you mean present this
Yeah,
contract?
Yeah,
We've been working on establishing a contract. We wanted to find a good, solid company that's associated with Orton Gillingham, but probably for the last 6 weeks or so.
okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Beck,
yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval to change from block to traditional schedule for high schools?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I recommend the board approve the change from block to traditional scheduling starting the 2021 school year for Central, West, and North High Schools.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is there any discussion? Oh, Esme, go for it.
So as somebody who experiences this every day, I thought I might be able to give a little bit of input from like traditional to block scheduling. So in the document given, it talks a lot about student absence impact and how the traditional schedule has a less of an impact than a block schedule. Personally, like just from personal experience, I would disagree with that. Just because taking 7 different classes in a day you get generally, at least in high school, you get homework for every single class. So having 7 different class periods in a day would, for me at least, have a much bigger impact as far as like getting behind than a block schedule. It also says that you wouldn't have there's no study halls in a block schedule. Again, I would disagree with that just because we have RTI time set up every day for half an hour where you can get just about anything done that you could want to. Another thing I would bring up is AP classes. I'm a person who has taken a lot of AP classes. I've taken AP Calculus, AP Stats, and AP Bio. And these are all classes that require 3 terms of classroom time. So I don't really know how AP classes would be affected if we went to a traditional schedule, just because we're already we're struggling getting behind, especially like with the snow days and stuff this year. But in every AP class I've taken, we always struggle with time. So even having even less time to take those classes, at least from an advanced AP setting, would be difficult in my eyes. And then there's another document that talks about the savings from going to to blocked from traditional setting. And I would just say that, at least for me, a block schedule has been really, really beneficial for me. And so if you look at the quality of education versus the amount of money you're saving, I personally don't think that it's going to be better just to save money. But that's just my personal.
Thank you very much, Esme. That it really is important when you present your thoughts. Director Beck.
So I have a couple different tracks. Number one, Esme, I really appreciate what you said. I am going to say that with things like AP classes, oftentimes you can put 2 class periods together. So it's not necessarily that you're trying to stretch, right, that you only have 2 semesters or whatever. So it can work out. I know it can be problematic. There are going to be some things that don't work well. There are going to be some things that work well. There's also options like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday versus Tuesday, Thursday schedule. I know in the colleges where I teach, that's typically what happens. And so you may have a longer class period 2 days a week versus a shorter one 3 days a week. But I know what you're saying about homework, and that can be problematic. As an educator, I personally would hope that educators would adjust and adjust the homework practices to accommodate that, so you're not getting 7 different classes worth of homework every day. But I do appreciate your feedback and your opinion. I happen to disagree on a couple of things, but I also, you guys are the students, and so, or you represent our students, and what you say is really important. You did say you disagreed. You do have study halls in the block schedule. Is that one of the things you said?
They're not exactly study halls, but we have 30 minutes. I think it's 30 minutes. I think it might be 35. It's 30 to 35 minutes every day where you can decide where you want to go for that 30 to 35 minutes. You decide at the beginning of the day, and some of those times are study halls. I think there's some of them that you're actually required to go to. If you're failing a class, you're required to go to a math study hall or whatever,
Okay.
and those are just by certain teachers.
Okay. So I guess the other thing I wanted to say, my other track here is, I feel like we voted on a lot of, I know our budget that we voted on was fluid, and that we agreed that we would, adjust if we could. But I guess I just don't want to set a precedent of having to vote on everything that we've already voted on in the budget. For example, we voted to, lay off a certain number of people, and we went ahead and did that. Yes, we have to vote on certain people's contracts. That's part of the contract language. But as far as the overall picture of the budget, when we said it was fluid, my interpretation of that, and I guess I thought more of the board members felt the same way, was that this is what we're sticking to unless we have some concrete way of saving the same money in a different manner. And right now, we don't have $1 million sitting around or we don't have another way to save $1 million. And my personal opinion is that the quality of the education is going to be equal. It'll take some adjusting and people won't like it. But I think we have very smart people in the district, and I think we'll come up with creative ways to make a traditional schedule work for the students. I went through a traditional schedule. I took lots of AP classes, didn't have any problems. Got 5s on all my AP exams. Granted, that was a long time ago. But I feel like, we said we were going to do this, and we should stick with the plan unless there's some extraordinary evidence that we have a way of saving the same amount of money by doing something else. Fluid, to me, is more like, it turns out that we're actually saving $2 million in this thing that we've done. So then we can not do something else because we're saving more than we expected. Or we come up with another way of closing schools or not closing a school. But most of the stuff in there, I feel like we already voted on, and I don't want to have to vote on everything again. So I just wanted to say my piece there. That doesn't mean we don't need to vote on this tonight. I mean, it's on the agenda, but I'm just trying to say, I feel like it's here.
Thank you for those comments. Director DeSalvo.
I just had one question. There's a comment in here that we would double the amount of books needed for year-long classes. Was that included? I know you included the para-educators in the savings, or you reduced that from the savings, but what about the books?
So yes, curriculum is working on that, and that's probably why it's a little bit more of a cautious than you may have seen at one point of a savings of 1.4 million to 1.5 is because of that. I mean, we are moving to a lot of online materials and different resources, but that's why it's a little more cautious expectation.
I'm just going to add a couple comments. First, thank you, Esme, because you've lived it for 4 years now and are a clear success story of what block scheduling can do. So I appreciate your comments. I would like to say that it's so difficult, these decisions that we have to make, and this being one of them, because I might have personally experienced good benefit from this as well. But I also know that we have to make these very difficult decisions in keeping our district going and meeting the expectations that we have promised to the state. And this being one of those things that is going to have to give because it's something we simply can't afford. So I think that we will learn from it, and I hope that we would revisit when we are back on our feet and we are on stable ground, that we can go back and look at, hey, maybe we can go to a combined, an A and B type schedule or something to ease back into it, because I do feel there is benefit with this, and I hope it's something that we would continue to look at in the future as we progress with opportunities for our students. So, thank you. And one more thing, she's going to take my mic now. I would like, and I'm a real advocate, and I told Susan this a lot in the phase 1 and now the phase 2, that I want follow-up. I want to know. I want to see the numbers. I want to see the savings. I want the proof. So whether it's on the busing changes or whatever we're changing to, I would like to follow up and say, hey, this worked out like we thought it would, or here's where we're at right now. We're making these changes. So please keep us informed of the progress of how this works and the savings associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Gosa?
I'm just going to say I'm going to vote no on this because I don't know if it's going to be as big of savings as has been presented. We've had that happen a few times and then came up short. And then I don't want to be in the position where I voted for something that didn't wind up saving money the way it should have, and we could have kept it the way it was and still been okay. So I will be voting no, but that's my reasoning.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? I want to make a couple of comments, mostly related to Director Beck's thinking about this particular issue and the budgets that we approved several months ago. And what happened, I think, in the last meeting where Mr. Scott was presenting the information on this, I think that he was taken aback or by surprise at the board's response. And I think the board kind of said, well, wait a minute, we aren't sure we're on board with this. That's the way that I interpreted that meeting. And I think that the fluidity, when you think about that, and I think that word has been used quite a bit. And it was used when the presentation was made to the SBRC. I think that was probably in December. And they acknowledged that word. And I think it was the first question out of the block. And they said, well, wait a minute, what do you mean about fluidity? And I think that the answer was similar to what Director Beck just expressed, is that the board supported the budget, but wanted it to not be so restrictive that it couldn't change something. If it said, well, gee, this block is just horrible, or changing to traditional is horrible, it wanted to have the flexibility to find some additional dollars and maybe displace that decision. Anyway, it was my impression that the board, I wasn't sure that the board actually supported making the move to traditional. And that's why it shows up here. It's a demonstration that the board does support this, even though it was part of the original budget that was approved. I think that there will be at least one more contentious issue that comes to the board, which will be closing a school. And that closing a school is on that budget also. And I think we may have a vote on that also. I'm certain that we will by the time it gets to where a school is named, but it may be that we have to affirm the board's support for some of those drastic decisions. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit for why it appears on the agenda tonight. It's not in addition to the budget, it's just an affirmation of our support for that decision. Any other discussion? Director Potts.
Our budget says we can save about 1.4 million if we shift. If we, even if we don't save 1.4 million, if we only save 1 million, if we don't do it, we don't save anything. And we have to find that 1.4 million someplace else. And, the 1.4 million is a big hunk. And everybody on the board says they don't ever want to close a school. Okay, if you don't ever close a school, and we don't want to change from the block schedule, okay, then don't change from the block schedule. Then where? Just where does it come from? I don't know. I had 6 children go through the school system. 3 went through the traditional schedule to high school. 1 struggled. Probably would have done better if it was a block. Last 3 went through on the block. 2 got through on the block. Block was good for them. One could have got through if you said you don't even have to go to class. Everything was there. It was like one of those people that everybody. I couldn't stay. Just do you have any homework? No, I did it already. Great grades. The schedule didn't matter to him. It'll matter to some kids. Others will adjust. We don't like change. Human beings don't like change. I remember when we were bringing the 6th grade into the junior high and the 9th grade to the high school. Education in Western civilization was about to be destroyed. Period. We didn't want those 6th graders. They didn't want those 9th graders. The only people who are happy were the elementary people because they wanted to get rid of the 6th graders. We were going to go to middle schools. We had hearings. We had public hearings. People came and said, oh my God, kids are in middle school. You don't learn anything in middle school. It's all touchy-feely, fuzzy-wuzzy. We went to middle schools and everything turned out just fine. Everybody learned. Everybody grew. Well, then we were going to go away from middle schools. We were going to end middle schools because we couldn't afford it anymore. Oh my God, middle school people, we were beside ourselves. How are we going to cope? We don't have the time. We won't be able to work in teams. We won't be able to. Everything turned out okay. Children are adaptable, more so than their teachers, perhaps more so than their parents. It'll turn out okay. The thing, here again, now I'm going to say the thing that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the reduction in the elective classes that kids can take, the exploratories, the wanna takes. We're good at laying out the gotta takes for kids. Gotta take 4 years English. Gotta take 3 of math. Gotta take 3 of science. Gotta take 3 of social studies. Well, is a kid going to have time to get in that STEM stream? Is he going to have time to do the pre-engineering studies? Is he going to have time? I don't know. I never worked in a high school. I don't know how that works out. Are those kids at West still going to be able to concentrate in the welding classes so John Deere can hire them before they graduate? I don't know. I have faith that we can work that out. I have faith that we may come back and say, okay, maybe every kid doesn't need 3 years of science, or maybe every kid doesn't need 3 years of math, or maybe kid does need 3 years of social studies. I can't believe I just said that. I was a social studies teacher. But within that, we use the word fluid a lot, but we have to be able to adapt the instructional program to the career aspirations or the needs of those high school kids. And maybe not when they're freshmen or sophomores, okay? But beyond that, juniors and seniors, maybe we need to look at a little more flexibility in how we do things. I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Director Hayes.
When I was reading this over the weekend, as much as I would like to say no, because it feels like the students who are actually living this, they prefer the block over traditional. I came back to our November 9th meeting where we were told that we need to be unified and we need to save money. And with that, it's not going to be easy with any of these decisions that we're making. But right now, we have 2 years to cut quite a chunk out of the budget. And if this is at least $1 million, that's a start. So as unfavorable as I am towards it, I am going to vote yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
I agree with what Director Hayes said in that this is one of those decisions that I'm really not in favor of, but I know I have to do it as a unified group. We have to have this savings. But I want follow-up. I want to see the savings. I want to know that we did what we said we were going to do. My vote is yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
I will be the odd man out and vote no.
My vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. May I have a motion regarding approval of policy?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the following policy changes for 503.11 graduation requirements.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
Mr. Scott, I believe you are the one that put this together, correct? And I know we don't determine how this is distributed within a day or anything like that. Could you just explain the credit requirements listed for the classes 2021 through 2024? Is that 26 credits on a block schedule?
So for a student that has 4 years of block, which will be the next two classes, the graduating class of 2019, 2020, they'll stay within our same 26 credits. For every year that I don't have the block available to me as a student, I'll have one less credit that I'm required to graduate. Because
Okay.
I'll have one less opportunity for some elective credits. So if I have 3 years of block and 1 year of traditional, mine will be 25 credits to graduate. 2 years of block, 2 years of traditional is 24. And so that's phase it out. So then years from now, we'll come back and the class of 2024 will be able to just amend the policy to just have that be our standing practice for the future.
Okay. And then as far as the reduction in the PE and health,
So the worked with the curriculum director, Corey Guy, on this, and we reviewed what was the state in their state code, state policy, and physical education. It's only going to be required 1 unit, but it's still 4 terms. And the reason I had it changed to 1 unit was because if we can come up with a creative way to offer PE for 20 days in a quarter, that's all we're required to do for the amount of seat time, if that's a better way to say it. Currently, it's probably going to end up being 2 units of PE time until we can create something that will mesh into that, whether it be an every other day with a class. I don't know what that would be at this point. But for a graduating requirement, I wanted to put the minimum on there, and 1 unit would be what it is, but they do have to take it every year.
all 4 years.
So they really need, in a traditional, they need 1 quarter of PE credit, but currently we would be offering it as 2 quarters.
Okay.
And so we have to kind of figure out how to make that work. But I wanted the policy to reflect what the state requirement was, the minimal state requirement, and then we could work from there.
So this is essentially contact hours.
Yeah.
And then you guys will work out
Physical
where
education it
those-
is.
yeah,
it
that's
takes
what I
on-
mean.
Yep, for PE it does.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Director Potts.
I got a question. Do you remember or do you know when we shifted from the 7-period schedule to the block? Did the board change the number of graduation credits required in the core areas, English, math, science, and social studies?
The state increased some of the requirements during that time, but we didn't graduate it in like this because we had some schools were still on traditional, some were on block. It wasn't until I believe West High School was our last adopted high school. West came on board that we started the transition of these credits, but many of these, like language arts, 4 credits, 4 years of that, 4 years of math, or 3 years of math, some of that was updated during that time. So it was an increase in some of our cores compared to what they would have had maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago.
And that's not required by the state, that's a requirement we laid on there?
Well, no, what I tried to include in front of you is what's required by the state, what's their
The
recommendation.
state requires 4, 3, 3, and 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's, okay.
Director Beck.
Just one other question about how this works. If the board sets that requirement, and when we figure it all out, it seems like that's like a credit short. Would we then have to go back and change, like if we're off in our math or something like that, we'd have to go back and change the policy?
No, that's the reason at the bottom when I put electives, I put 6.5 credits to 10.5 credits to be
Oh,
within
okay.
the scope of what we're doing right now.
Okay.
I was hoping that would cover it.
Okay. And again, this is just minimum, so students can take more.
They can
if
take
fit
more.
it in. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just putting that that's what they're required to be, somewhere between that 6.5 to 10.5 credits to meet the requirements listed in red above.
Any additional discussion? Director Gosa?
No, I don't have anything.
Esme?
No, I don't have anything.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
I'm going to vote no on this one too because it kind of goes with the one I just voted no on before. Otherwise, I'd be contradicting myself. So I'm going to say no.
Thank you. And my vote is yes, motion carries. We'll move on to discussion items. First up is the Phase 2 update.
Associate Superintendent is going to share, Sinead's going to share with you how we've organized ourselves so far with Phase 2, and then lead a discussion about how the board would like to be notified.
My intentions this evening are just to share with you the work that's been done so far in the Phase 2 audit. And TJ is exactly right. What we've done so far is to try to organize our thinking, and then we need to have the discussion about what is it you'd like to see in order to report back. I keep thinking about the work Susan did with Phase 1 and how she would report back. What you're going to find out in these Phase 2 noncompliance citations is many of them will be one and done. For example, the one, and we'll go through this quickly, but one of them about the board needs to recognize the equity coordinator. Well, you're going to see that the action for that was just to identify the board meeting when it's in the official board minutes and cite it in here. Well, that's done. We don't have to go back and do anything with that. So many of these in the Phase 2 are one and dones. What you see, what happened here is we took the entire Phase 2 audit, and if you look in the columns, we just created a column that identified the citation by number so that we could use that as a reference point. And then we matched the page number so that if you wanted to say, hey, where's that one at? You could say, turn to page 53. Then you'll see the citation is listed there. The next column was the corrective action that the state is saying you need to do. The due date, and most of these were in August of 2019 or August of 2020. There's a column for when is that date, when it's completed. We worked as a leadership team to identify the department who's responsible for that citation in terms of correcting it, and then any citation notes that were on there. We went through and identified, after some conversation about, well, what would be the best way to record this? So when we assign this citation to a department, that's that green part there, we asked 4 questions around that individual citation. One is, for example, HR has several of these citations in the very beginning. So the question around each of the citations to HR was, how do you propose to address this? What are your plans? How are you going to keep track of this? What's your plan on how to deal with this? The next column was for them to fill in, what implications is this going to have from the building? Because we felt very strongly that we don't want to just pass this on to the building to say, here, you deal with this. If we have access to the information, if we have access to the databases, we don't need to ask the principals and the secretaries to collect it. And we knew that there's going to be a need for resources. Some of these are very lengthy administrative assistant, secretarial kinds of data entry things. So what assistance, if any, or what resources are you going to need? And then the last one really came out of some conversations. I know that Director Goza has had concerns about. Julie, you and I have spoken with some people in our community about how are we going to ensure that this citation doesn't happen again, that idea of auditing ourselves. And so that was one of the questions that we asked them on each of these citations, like, how will you ensure that this doesn't repeat itself? So with that in mind, this document that is currently here that we can take a look at quickly, it's not finished by any means. We did get HR last week to go in and put some actions around their work so that we have something to talk about this evening, but it still needs to come back to our leadership team and say, yeah, that's appropriate, or no, you got to get more specific than that. So if you would just humor me here a bit, we'll just take just one column and I can run you through across it how it would look. If you go to 12.2 on page number 56, if you're following me, the citation was that there isn't evidence provided to demonstrate that teachers are evaluated on a 3-year cycle. Numerous personnel files lacked that or didn't show that. So the corrective action was to review all of the teacher files. That has to be done by August of 2019. It's in the HR department. And then we linked any information that we would have. When we get done, there'll be a link on every one of these where the documentation will be for the state to find it if they wanted to. And you can see there, the link is the teacher evaluation list. So it's literally the list of all the teachers and their evaluation cycles. HR says they're going to address this by having the principals each fall will have the list reviewed by HR on May 31st of the following year. Any missing items, the delinquent evaluations will be addressed by the individual principals. What implications should this have for the buildings? They're saying if the principals have not conducted there'll be some consequences for the building. It goes on to say, what resources do you need at this time? They're not sure, it's unknown. And then how will you ensure that this won't happen again? They're going to put new procedures in place for sharing the evaluation information for all staff with principals at the beginning of the new pull, they called it, or the beginning of the new year. So in the fall, they'll set up a regular scheduled meeting that will review all the evaluation procedures and requirements with each of the department heads and the principals. That's just an example of how these lines will be filled up all the way across for all of the citations that are in the phase 2. We went then back through and we highlighted in the gray. Quite honestly, we don't know if your superintendent, Dr. Kobilski, will want to approach this the same way, but we didn't feel like we could wait because some of this stuff is due in July. So this is our best approach. He may choose to do this differently, but until we're moved in a different direction, we went through and highlighted all of the things that are due in August of 2019. And that's where we're going to put our energies for now, for the month of June. And then the white things that aren't highlighted yet will be kind of our next step, and those are due a year from now. So then if they do want to move in a different direction, that will be available to do.
We went through each of these citations in all the way across the board. Everyone will look similar. We're going to meet again with HR, and they're all, actually, all of these citations, not all of them, are in HR. There's one hanging out there that we believe is a curriculum issue, might be a 504 concern, and we're working on that. And then there's two special educations, and Sandy and Susan will be helping us with that piece on here. And those aren't due in 2019. One other comment I want to have, and then we can have some conversation. If you go down to the bottom of that form, along with meeting these citations, if you read the report as often as we have, you're going to find that there's also recommendations. There's recommendations and citations. So we have put together, if you keep scrolling, it'll pop up. We put together a grid just like this. Because besides meeting all the citations, it says that we need to address their recommendations. And so they're all listed out also the same way. Somebody will be responsible for that. The one of them is about restructuring central office, for example. Well, that is put over there and it's underneath the superintendent. And that'll be something that'll have to be handled sometime in the very near future in order for this all to be cleared up in the next 2-year period. I'm trying to think. Wherever we can, we're asking the departments to link the documentation in there so it'll all be in one spot. Oh, here's what I was going to say. The one thing is just to do it, to get it done, because some of these are one and dones. Yeah, you tell I can't. Thank you. The other piece is, thank you. The other piece is we've got to go back and we got to do these things the right way. We've got to do it with fidelity and a sense of quality. And one, for a simple example, is it's one thing to get your evaluations done on a 3-year cycle and to check off the list like, yeah, I've done them. But then we got to go back and we got to say, are we really training principals the right way? Are they understanding all the aspects of evaluation? What should be done? What should be collected? How should it be? And Rob and TJ and I, just in our own conversations, we haven't done that. That hasn't happened for a couple of years. And so we've got a lot of new administrators, things change. This would be one of those things that needs to show up, and how are you going to make sure this doesn't happen in the future? This would be one of those things that would show up with a tickler, if you will, on somebody's folder to say, set up staff development for all new administrators around evaluation. So I think it's about getting these things accomplished in some cases, and then it's about putting a sense of fidelity and making it a better system when we're done than it was before we came in. There is a large number of these citations that really are the one and done kind of things, though. They're things like naming an equity coordinator, and once that's done, I'd be interested in your discussion, but we could come back in a month and we could show you the things, for example, that are completed. We could show you the things where we're at on the items that we're still working on. But if you think about it, and the way this system is set up, a report in June and a report in July, and that first section, those gray citations, if you will, they should all be completed. Because then we'll get to work on the white lines or the sections that are a year from now. And some of those things we'll be able to get to in June and July too, but we really decided that our focus should be on these things that are due in '99. So with that being said, this is not intended to be the document that would show up here every time. We could do like an executive summary, and we could refer to them by the citation and the page number, something like that, because this is a kind of a working document. It's in a Google Doc, so I was already putting my eyes on some of the HR stuff today and changing their wording. It's not things like, we've been doing this for a long time. Not that they said that, but we just need to go back and say, complete it, and put the date that's in there and link the document that shows that it's done. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be working through. Again, it's HR primarily in this group. There's a couple of citations with special ed that I'm confident Sandy and Susan will be working on with us. And then we've got one hanging out there. It's either 504, learning supports, or a curriculum concern. It's that one about having materials and access to educational. Have you worked with publishing companies to provide other ways for kids to learn? And I haven't even talked to Corey about it. She may very well have that on file with every piece of curriculum they buy, like what's available. So we got to do that piece yet. So that was my intentions today, was just to kind of tell you that we are working on it. This is where we're at so far. We've chunked out the work a little bit. We've started to assign it out, and we're interested in how you'd like to be reported out to on a monthly or regular basis.
It would also be our recommendation that we, because it's very evident that when we were going through phase one, everything was rolling through Sandy. We had a point of contact, a person that was here to watch our progress or lack of progress. And in this instance, a lot of those issues that we're talking about due in August, we either have to let them know that we've completed them or reach out and touch base, because a lot of those citations that are in here are not directly related to our point of contact as of now. And so we thought we would send whatever report that you guys come up with, we would send that to Amy Williamson at the state for the citations where it may not hit with our national experts that are coming. We do have a date set. Julie DeSalvo is the board member. June 10th is when we negotiate our milestones. 11th, thank you. June 11th, when we negotiate our milestones with the states. In the ballpark, right?
You're close.
Okay. So, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, so we'll probably have plenty of questions. Director DeSalvo?
I think this is a great start in logging all of it. I do like the format. I would prefer that we get updates at every board meeting until we get through August, just because those dates are going to be here very quickly, and we're going to want to keep real close tabs on those. I like the idea of reporting to Amy too, like this is completed, or hey, we have trouble with this one, or questions or whatever. I think that's a great idea. It's a huge spreadsheet. It's kind of hard to look at. And so I think I like your idea too of updates of, okay, so this one, the citation number, this is the status. So any movement, any completion is what I would like to see reported on each board meeting. Obviously, you don't have to go through all of them, but progress of things that have been done, and then completion. And if you want to reference the citation number, then we can equate it back to that. All these tabs are.
We did talk about when we believe it's completed, to change it to green.
Sure.
And then you'd be able to just look at it and see of the
it's done.
12 gray lines you're working
That's
on,
perfect.
there's 3 that aren't. Let's report out. So
I think
we'll go
that's-
green or yellow, and if we're working on them, and then we'll go green if we've completed it.
Done. Perfect.
If that sounds.
I think this is great. Thank you.
Director Beck?
Yeah, I really like this table format as well. It's very easy to read and follow. So basically everything that Director DeSalvo said. Also, I do agree that we should get a report on this table every meeting at least until August. And I know there may be some changes as Dr. Kabilski comes on board, but I know he'd appreciate having these done by the time he comes on board. So even though he'll overlap for a month. My other comment is the concerns part, the last page there, concern number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Particularly the vision and communication ones, they don't have dates that they have to be done, but I would ask that those be added to the list of things that need to be done as soon as possible. Just because I know, we only have 3 months until school starts again, right? And we want to make sure everybody's on the same page when we start school again. So for example, what is it? The concern 2.1, where some interviewees reported differences in understanding how the discipline process was supposed to be working, right? The accreditation team recommends that the district develop an internal communications plan, and that was the same recommendation for several things. I would like to see that get done over the summer so that by the time we start in the fall, everybody's on board and knows exactly who they need to be talking to and what's going on, right?
Yes, I agree.
And I think that would eliminate a lot of the other issues. And I know as far as structure goes, you know, that may not be something that we want to reshuffle right now. But at least with getting a coherent internal communications plan. And the other one is the parent and community engagement. I think that's a piece that needs to be worked on. I think some of those things are happening. I saw somewhere about a meeting on June 4th. I would like to see more advertisement of those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
But certainly those are things that we could at least get going on, right? Or at least get something in place and then tweak it.
That's a plan, yep. We probably should add a column there, I would think, where we could just put current action. You know, like I didn't even think about that, but that's a wonderful action around involving parents with the all of the schools holding meetings on June 4th around the special ed delivery plan.
Right.
So that could show there as an action. Might not be enough, but at least it's an action.
Right.
It's something that's happening.
Right.
Actually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Actually, that is an example of the communication plan that we are learning through the DSAMI. And they're calling it cascading, where when we have an idea, and that's actually our district special ed delivery plan. And that's going out to be reviewed by all of our buildings. And then that information's gathered in a Google Doc, and then it will be brought back. We put it on our website. We put a note for comments, went out to all of our parents. And so that's one thing that we are currently acting on. And we could go down the list and say, not quite yet. And then there's obviously that big citation in the top that we're continuing to work on, which is disproportionality. So we're continuing to work on that. But that is one way of communicating with our entire network of stakeholders.
Right. And I had a question about that. So things like that, would they go to all parents or only parents whose kids are identified as having a 504 IEP?
All.
Okay, good. I think that's important.
All parents
because
are welcome.
all parents might have something to say.
And there'll be somebody at every one of those meetings to, Sandy and Susan have it set up so that along with the building principal and the special ed teachers, for sure, will be there. Then they're gonna gather any questions or concerns that they have, and they'll all get compiled into one set where they'll review them and make adjustments to their plan if it seems necessary.
Awesome, great. So that cascading does seem to be a good thing.
Very much so, yeah.
Okay, great.
Anything else? Director Gosa, you got anything?
No.
All right, I've got a few things. Two of you mentioned having an update at every meeting. Did that mean every regular meeting or every meeting including committee of the whole?
I would say every meeting until August, because it's coming quickly.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
All right, thank you.
At least for the summer,
verifying.
yeah.
So as I look at this and a couple of things, and I may have misunderstood, in the district vision and communication, there are three references there, 2.0, 2.1, 2.2. And it indicates, and I didn't look up the district vision and communication. I thought it was a board policy, but I'm not sure. And so I was a little concerned if it is a board policy that the board should be involved in it, but it doesn't appear that they are here. What's been written, I think, has been written by the administration, not by the state, right? In those sections?
Yes.
Okay, so let me go back to it.
Those are the recommendations that came out of the concerns that they heard. They heard concerns, and then
Right.
they recommended we do these kinds of things, and now we got to put actions to those recommendations.
Right, I understand, but but my impression was that the board has to do some of this, and especially in vision, the district vision, and we can look at it later, but I'm just concerned that if the board should be doing some of this, because looking at it, it doesn't look like the board really has to do anything.
There isn't, I mean, we may come across an item that we'll put board next to, and then we'll have to bring it to your attention if it's a policy or a
Right.
communication plan or a, if you read this, so Ralph, it's not about vision and mission. It's in that category, but it's really about what Director Beck was saying. You need to have more communications with parents. You need to let them know what's going on. You need to more actively involve them like you do in your title buildings they reference. And that's about parent nights and those kinds of things.
And I understand that, but when they use the word vision, that's just a little bit different. So, and then in 2.1, I've had so many discussions about that issue. And this is from a number of people. And I would say primarily teachers. And then it says the accreditation team recommends that the district develop an internal communications plan to review the current plan. And I'm thinking, holy cow, is that? And the accreditation team is the state, right? Not you. And I'm going, if that's all we have to do is develop an internal communications plan, and it's going to take care of all those issues, that surprises me. And it doesn't feel to me like it has the meat that I guess I would expect on something like that. And I'm not meaning to get into the weeds, but that I think is a huge issue. And it seems like more than just a communication.
Well, I think that issue, when you read through it, it talks about aggressive kids and special education kids being allowed to be removed from class. So that one we'd sit down with our team that meets every Tuesday, I would think, Susan, Sandy, talk about how do we communicate what's really going on and what the rules are for those kids or all kids, and then how do we communicate that to parents? That's what I believe it's saying. That now what's your there's a lot of confusion around this, as you just said. So what's your communication plan to set, so people understand how this is being dealt with? And where do you find it? And it's not, that's what I think it means. In other words, these are what parents' concerns are. So address it, and then how are you going to communicate about it? And if you read it, they're confused about, can kids be pulled out? Can kids stay in? That kind of. So there are discipline procedures and policies that you probably reference. We haven't done this page yet. You
Right.
probably reference, and you think, okay, now we got it fixed. Now how do we let parents know about it? What's the vehicle for communicating this?
Okay, well, I won't.
That's where I'm at,
I won't
but-
belabor it. Just two more points. One of them was back up on the one that you used as an example. 12.1 as an example. And it's due this August. And when you presented it, it sounded like a lot of the stuff actually wasn't going to occur until next May. And I thought, well, is the state going to accept that, or is the work that you've already completed sufficient if you say, here's the plan?
The part that's not going to be done to May is the part I believe we added to this report. Like, how are we going to keep ourselves from getting in this situation again in the future? And that's where we talked about, we'll have we'll staff develop with principals. We'll share with them the procedures. We'll address the evaluation concern. Then we added that last column about that idea of auditing our own work so we don't find ourselves back here again. Well, that couldn't happen until, they're done next week. So the best we can do before August is clean it up, and then the caveat that we're putting on it, and how are we going to make sure this never happens again?
But my understanding is that you actually have all of the evaluations, right?
Well, yeah. All of them? No, probably not, but most.
Did you ever not do
The large majority, 99% of them, yes.
Okay. And within a 3-year cycle, certainly.
Well, you have to do something every year, so they have to check every year's list, but yes,
Okay.
we really do believe that.
All right. The only other thing that I would add, I like all of the comments that have been made, and I like the idea of every meeting getting the data. One of the things that I still can't figure out from this, and if it were possible, would be to give a representation. I love mathematical representations. And if you could say, well, we're 53% or whatever, because this is kind of discrete, the way that you're indicating where we are. And anyway, I'll just leave it at that. If there's a way to mathematically indicate for each one of these, it'd be great. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to our last discussion item, which is policy. Director Beck, you want to take it?
Yes. So administration came to us on the policy committee recently to adjust the policy for closing a school so that Dr. Kobilski would have a little bit more time after he starts before making that decision, which we've already included in our budget. And as I was taking a look at it, it turns out that the way the policy is written and the way it may have been operating are not exactly the same, or the way people were describing it operating. So first of all, right there in the blue, there was a resolution. The resolution described in the policy was to vote on this on or before the second Monday in October of the school year in which the board is proposing the closing. And so I interpreted that as the last day to close a school in the same academic year, okay? So to close at the end of academic year 1920, for example, we'd have to vote by the second Monday in October of 2019. The prior timeline given by Dr. Tate pushed it back to September and changed some other things around. So what I did was I went through this and I worked out what the timeline would look like as it's written. So Mary, if you could scroll to the end of the document, you can go to the next page. I'll read the first part of this page. So right there at the bottom, I used 2019-2020 as an example. And so if we wanted to close a school at the end of academic year 2019-20, our first vote would have to occur by October 14th, where we adopt a resolution stating the intent to close a school at the end of the current year, which would include reasons for closing, the name of the school or schools, where students are going to be reassigned, and the time, date, and place of all public hearings to be held. Then, within 7 days of that, families at the affected schools have to be sent notice, and then over the next 35 days of that, which would be November 18th, 2019, the public can file a written response and written questions to the board. And then the board would be required to hold public hearings between 45 and 60 days after that. So that would be November 28th to December 13th of 2019. And it would be at the feeder high school, if at all possible. And then any written information and data presented to the board by the administration would have to be available to the public at least 5 days before the hearing. The second vote is when the board makes a final decision. So that would be the next regular board meeting after the hearing. So for example, if the hearing were on November 28th, then the decision would have to occur December 9th. If the hearing were on December 13th, then it's as late as December 23rd, assuming we actually have a meeting that day. At that point, the board produces a written statement stating the factors supported by appropriate data and research information produced at this point. The third vote is when the board adopts that final decision. Okay, so we have 3 votes. One is a resolution to close a school, and we name the school. The second one is After hearing all of the public input, we make the decision. And then the third one is to adopt that decision. And it has to be within 30 days of making the final decision or no later than January 15th. And in this case, it would be 2020. So the school would operate then for another 5 months before it was closed. Okay? So for example, if we voted to make our final decision on December 9th, then the adoption would occur January 8th. And if we voted on December 23rd, then the adoption would occur January 15th at the latest. So the way we had discussed it, was it 2018? I went and looked at that timeline, and that timeline had public forums in May and June of 2018, written information being provided on August 27th, the board adopting their resolution, so the first vote in September on September 10th, and then another public hearing. The second vote was supposed to happen in November, and then November 26th was going to be adopting the final written decision. And so that would have been, as I interpret it, closing a school at the end of the 18-19 school year, okay? So, after going through all of this, I would say that, first of all, I don't think it would be prudent to adopt a timeline in which our final decision came in April, which was the sort of suggestion if the policy is to close that same academic year, because that's only like 2 months, and I don't think that's a good idea. But if we want to make sure that we vote a full academic year before schools close, because there was some discussion in our policy meeting that when we voted, the school would then operate for a full academic year before it was closed, then we should probably establish a new timeline. Or the other option is to just leave it the way it is, and we can start discussing it as soon as Dr. Kabilski comes on board. So that's sort of where we are. But the policy does need to be amended a little bit because it's not exactly clear. There's two different timelines. The one that I mentioned, and then at the end here where Mary's showing right there, it doesn't match. Because it says a final written decision shall be made no later than April 15th, or no later than January of the year preceding the closing. And so that doesn't make sense, the way it's written to me.
Are you done? Mm-hmm. Why don't you lead the discussion on this too?
Okay, Director DeSalvo.
A couple things that I'm thinking of as I look at these changes. First question, in that fluid budget reduction document, when do we say we're closing a school? I have it somewhere.
I have it, but not in front of me.
I know. Where did I?
Here, I think I can pull it up.
So while you're looking for that, couple things that come to mind as I'm trying to figure out these timelines. First of all, I don't think, I have concerns going into the fall, couple months into school. I guess that's not as big of a concern, but I'm concerned with the fall for a number of reasons. First of all, I don't want to hit people up a couple months into their school year and say, oh, by the way, your school could potentially be closing. We will be voting on this. Our first vote will be October 14th, meaning that at the end of that year, their school would close. The second concern I have is that this is a year of board elections, and so you could have a board voting to make a decision on vote number 1, and then a different board voting on number 2. Now, we may not have the luxury of any of these things based on what that budget tells us when we have to have a school closed by. But those are things that come to mind immediately with looking at this at a very high level that I think we should all be thinking of. But that timeline is of concern.
I think that's a very good point about the elections. I'm having trouble finding the budget table that you guys gave us. I don't know where I put it. I thought I filed it away in my appropriate places, but apparently I did not. I believe it was 2020/2021 school year, if I remember correctly. Okay.
So it's not.
So the one we have on our, the one we have in our budget, I believe, was for the 20/21 academic year. So if we were to adopt a timeline where we wait until, say, after elections, or we wait until January of 2020, that would be a school that we would be voting to close at the end of the following academic year. So it'd be a full year and a half before it actually closes. Go ahead.
So I know you're looking to solidify a policy that would be ongoing, and I don't know if that's the right answer, but I think in light of all of that, I would like that considered before we alter this policy or develop timelines for what we're going to do. I think that should be considered. If we write it into policy, we may have to change it, but that would be my recommendation.
Okay. There is an exception, like an exceptional circumstances paragraph at the end, which does allow, if something extreme happens, but that is where it got pushed up to April 15th. And I don't know if I don't think everybody's comfortable with that. So, all right. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Director Potts?
I would just say that any policy we adopt needs to be universally applicable. Without dates and times of this school year or that school year, it needs to be applicable whether this board is dealing with closing a facility, or if a board in 5 years is dealing with it, that this policy is what will determine that.
Right.
Because otherwise, every board's going to sit down and, we need to change these dates, we need to change these dates, we need to change these dates.
No, anything can be done before. These are like these are the latest dates that things can happen.
Right, but I think that the timelines in the policy need to be phrased in such a way that doesn't put an actual calendar year in it.
Oh, right, yes.
So that it just says before the end of the current academic year.
Correct.
Or by November of the current academic year, the board makes a vote that it will close the school in the next academic year.
Right, I agree. It needs to be clarified.
'Cause
And I think,
I was getting confused, but
I think
I was
you just
wondering
made
who's
an
on
example.
first.
I just used an example. I was
Gotcha.
trying to give us an idea. Yeah, Mr. Schnaden.
Well, for whatever it's worth, I really like what Director DeSalvo said. Why you might consider not locking down a new board, or even for people to be interested to knowing what so they know what's coming. What's the advantage over October or November? You could really move it back just 1 month and keep all the other dates the same way. And I think Director Potts has a great idea. 6 months later, you do this, or at the end of the academic year. I think those are good verbiage.
Okay. President Johansson?
Yeah, a couple things. I just want to make sure with all of this, I like what you've said and what you've done. And my interpretation of what you've presented is that either keeping it as it is or clarifying it, that we could make a decision next fall. I don't care what time it is. And we could actually, at the end, because next fall will be the beginning of the 1920 school year. And I think part of it's been the way that we've talked about, because we say, oh, well, we're going to close it in the 2021 school year. My interpretation of what you just said is that we make those decisions next spring, there will be a school not opening that following fall. which
That's
is-
how I interpret it.
Okay, which is like a year and a half from now, right, or something. I mean, it's not this fall.
No, it's the
That's
following fall.
Following fall.
Yep.
Okay. And I like it. I know that there are going to be people that are upset. Look at JB. I mean, that still continues. One other thing I just thought, I was thinking about state laws relative to federal legal interpretation. And I was thinking that about something Director DeSalvo said, because she said, what if we have an election that year? And I was thinking that another solution would be to just say that in years that there is a board election, that you're going to do this also, that the board members will have to stay for one more year. And then you could, because we can go ahead and have a separate election the following year. It's just a thought. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. I know this was written when elections were held separately in September, and now they've moved to November. So I think it is prudent that we move the initial date to past an election. I think it would be really unfair to have one board start the process and another board have to finish it. I kind of like the idea of having people stay because the one board has put in all the time and research to figure out what school, what's going to happen, and then the new people may or may not be the same. They may not. Yeah, well, that's true. They could take the blame for it. But I do think we need to push it back to, say, a November at least. But I just want to figure it out and clarify it so that we are, whatever we say we're doing, we word this so that we have adequate time to make a well-researched decision. If we want to hold public forums before the first decision, there's nothing that says you can't do that. I mean, it doesn't have to be in the policy, but these are the minimum things that have to be done. And I just want to make sure we give ourselves enough time to make that decision, but I think it would be prudent to push it back till after a potential election. So typically those are the first Tuesday in November, right? And so it would be, well, I probably wouldn't want to put it on the second Monday in November either. Welcome to the board. But then perhaps it would be okay to push it to a January or something like that, especially if we decide we want to vote and then let the school operate for a year before, if we can financially. But if we can't, then that exceptional circumstances would kick in. So, Director Hayes?
I like it as well, and thank you for all the work that you've put into it. I agree with Director Potts, so I'm okay with the time frame without the years, so that it would be consistent.
Right. Okay. Director Johansson, or President Johansson?
No, director's fine. One of the things that, in reading through it and thinking about the forums were challenging. And in here it talks about public hearings, though. And the hearing is the purview of the board.
Right.
And correct. And I believe that the public forums are the purview of the administration. And
I think you're right.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's worth it to put it in here, but it might kind of clarify it, that we say the administration shall hold at least 2 public forums during that time or something. It's just a thought, because 5 years from now, yeah, it's going to be a whole different board.
Right,
So-
right. It might be prudent just to say, should the administration wish to hold public forums or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Just so it's, I don't know, because I don't know what kind of power we have to require something like, I guess we could. If
Oh, we
if
could.
we think it's appropriate, yeah.
Yeah.
Director Potts?
I would say if we decide to incorporate that kind of language in the board policy, that we use permissive language.
Absolutely.
That the board may choose to, we may choose to.
So it's more of a suggestion,
Yeah,
not a.
rather than a policy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. If there's, Director Gosa?
I just want to echo what Director DeSalvo said, exactly what I brought up in the policy meeting about a new board, because myself, Director DeSalvo, and Director Hayes, we got thrown right in the JB thing, and I brought that up in the policy committee about that, with having one board doing one thing and then the new board coming in having to do that. So I definitely, I'm glad you're wanting to go that route now. So that was all I was going to say.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing is I should draft some sort of policy adopting all the timeline information that we've talked about, and we can decide if it's appropriately lengthy and sufficient to make an informed decision. I'm getting some nods and no's, and I'll bring it to, should I bring it to the policy committee next week, or should I bring it to here? I guess would be my question.
I'd say it's your decision.
Okay. We have a meeting on, no, we don't have a meeting next week, right? Okay, I'll bring it to the policy committee. Yeah, I'll bring it to the policy committee the policy committee meets on the 5th, and then I can have other eyeballs look at it then, and then I'll bring it for a vote the 10th. You will. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Director Beck. We'll move on. Any administrative reports?
None at this time.
Okay. I haven't seen any board requests. Oh, wow. Got all sorts of them.
I found that 2 and 5 years on the November 29th board meeting. So
Okay.
if you wanted to go back and review that, in case we're in this situation where we wanted to review that, it was on the November 9th board meeting, or 29th
29th.
board meeting. The 5-year and 2-year and 5-year budget.
Okay, thank you.
Was 2020. And 21-22.
Meaning two
different years with two different facilities.
two different schools.
And I just wanted to echo the whole reason for bringing that policy to the board was to allow our new superintendent more than 2 months before, at the time, he or she, before he had to close a building. So
Right.
that was the whole purpose behind it. It wasn't to close the school faster.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
It wasn't any other reason than that. And now the new board elections happening at that time makes complete sense to revisit that.
Yeah, it was, I'm glad you brought it up, because otherwise we would not have necessarily looked at this, and I think it's a good idea. I did have one comment, and I don't know if I can speak for the whole board, but I probably can. I'd like to thank Rachel Steiner for her service. I probably should have said something in my board report, and I forgot to make a note, but we're going to miss you, and thank you very much, and good luck.
There's a party next week, not a party.
She's CEO. She's boss.
I know.
Thank you for those comments, Allison. And I think that it was appropriate to speak on behalf of the whole board. I'm surprised that, and I apologize, Rachel, I just plumb forgot about you.
I know.
So,
I just forgot to write it.
I know. But thank you, Allison, for being so thoughtful. Are there any other board requests? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.